welcome to another episode of EMDR with Alice. Today I thought we would talk about somatic interweaves, what those look like, when you might use them, and what are some examples. So when we talk about somatic interweaves, these are cognitive interweaves that we can use in the reprocessing phases. So remember, reprocessing phases are phases 4, 5, and 6 of EMDR. When do we use somatic interweaves? Well, we look for opportunities to use them when a client might be stuck or blocking, but what we're noticing, the patterns that are kind of present might be showing up in the client's body that might lead us to recognize that the body needs help kind of processing or connecting the knots to be able to move to the next step in the processing. Or it seems like there's a body part or a place that the client is really recognizing that the memory is stuck in their body. So kind of two ways, again, that might show up, or we might notice when we could use somatic interweaves would be if the body is in a pattern. One way to kind of think about that might be a pattern of reenactment. Or if the body seems to be stuck and the client is reporting in the feedback portion that they're feeling it in their body, but it's not moving. It's either getting bigger, worse, or it's kind of staying the same. This might be time to maybe implement a somatic interweave. So let's talk through a couple of examples of what that might look like. There's lots of examples out there, but I'm just going to give you kind of a handful that can get you started. And we'll start with when you recognize that a client might be reenacting. So an example of this would be, let's say every time you check in your reprocessing in the feedback portion, which that's the portion where you say, what are you noticing now? And they give feedback. So if it's consistently the same and it's not moving, then we're recognizing, oh, they may be stuck here. And we're also noticing that the body is kind of showing some patterns of behavior. So one example might be that their body seems to be kind of closed in, like it's folded over, it's small, it's not taking up a lot of space, and they also seem to be stuck in their processing. So one somatic interweave I may offer is I might say, would you like to just try maybe sitting up a little bit straighter, taking up a little bit more space, and now bring up this part of the memory and follow my fingers. And that's it. I'm just offering a different posture, which essentially is connecting them to their body in the present moment into a present moment posture. And that can often get that foot from 2 feet in the past right back into 1 foot in the present, 1 foot in the past, and then can help them keep processing. So that might be one example of a somatic interweave that I do use quite often. If I see that their body is holding a posture, I might invite them into a different posture with that. Sometimes that can look like going into the posture more. So let's say the client seems to kind of be pulling back or moving away as they're in a memory. And again, the memory is not moving. I might invite them to exaggerate that movement. So with somatic interweaves, we may try one way, see if it works. If it doesn't, we might try the other way. So I might invite them to change their posture, might be one thing. If I recognize maybe we're kind of in a small posture and we want to get them back in 1 foot in the present, or if they're kind of leaning in one direction, turning in one direction and kind of holding their body in this stiff kind of one posture, I might invite them to lean more into it and be real intentional with it. And let's just see what happens as we lean more towards that direction or turn more in that way. And then let's see if something shifts. If it doesn't, I might invite them to now turn the other way as we're with the memory and start the bilateral and see if something happens. Oftentimes, especially when we're working with memories around abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, the turning away of the body, once we invite them to turn towards, their body might, you got to watch because their body might start getting overwhelmed because of the fear of turning towards the perpetrator might happen. So just keep your eye on that if we do it. And so you just may want to, again, follow up and remind them where they are, that they're safe now, that they're in the present. So postures, leaning more into a posture or shifting into a different posture are two different somatic interweaves that we may use. Another one might be like recognizing when the body's going into a trauma response. So let's say their foot's tapping a lot, or they're real fidgety. I might recognize their body actually might be in wanting to kind of release energy through that run response. And so one thing I may invite them to do, if I see this happening and they're not moving in the processing, is I might invite them to try an experiment of just letting their feet kind of run in place as long as it feels good. So that might be an interweave that we try. If they're holding on to a lot of anger and we're stuck in anger, and I ask them, where do they feel that? They feel that in their arms. We could also try a somatic interweave where we take a towel and we squeeze it as tight as we can, or we push up against a wall or into the floor as hard as we can, just following the energy of that anger and letting it do whatever it needs to. Anytime I'm inviting clients to be with a sensation in the body, I offer the invitation of let's just notice it and just see what it wants to do. And we're not trying to make it go away. We're not trying to do anything with it. Let's just notice it. I always start there, do a set, and then we might offer another somatic interweave. So first, the interweave is just to help invite them to be present without trying to make it go away or do anything about it. And then one final interweave we'll talk about, there's a bunch, but here's just a handful to try. Another somatic interweave that I'll do quite often when a client is really stuck with a body sensation that's present and it's not moving or budging, is I help them get real present with them. So I'll start by just asking, what size or shape does this place in your body have? A size or shape? Is there a color that goes with it? Does it have a temperature? Is there any dimension to it whatsoever? And so I'll kind of ask those questions, get answers from the client. I'm not doing bilateral here. I'm just kind of pausing, asking questions about that space. And then I'll ask them, as you connect with it right now, and I'll repeat back kind of the size, the shape, the color, the any sensations or temperature. And then I'll say, and if this place could talk, what would it say? And then I begin bilateral. And that helps them be present and connect with it. And oftentimes it might shift at that point, or something emerges out of that body sensation that then allows us to continue in the processing. So thinking about, with all of those principles of the AIP, when a client might be stuck or blocking, one of the things that we want to do is invite them to be more present with the disturbance, with staying within our window of tolerance. You guys have heard me talk about that and teach that concept. So if you kind of think about all the interweaves I've talked about here, it's inviting them to go towards the disturbance or towards whatever is here and present, and be present with it as we're observing it and noticing it. And then we trust the system to do what it can and what it needs to process it on through. So these are just some tips of some different somatic interweaves you can use in EMDR therapy. Join me next time and we'll talk about some other good things in your learning journey of EMDR. Thank you.